Welcome everybody. This is week 4 of Blooming Where You Are Planted. As you can see, we got some of our starter plants that we started here. We tried the new watering method because we are still learning the process and we're trying to perfect our growing.
So what is the watering process?
So we tried using the spray bottle method, okay? So what you just fill up a nice little spray bottle with water, and I was spraying them until I was getting the soil completely moist. But as you can see, that may have not been enough for our plants, and they have withered, wilted. So we are trying our best to come up with a different plan to see if we can save these. But we also are starting new starter trays, and we're going to take what we learned from this pile and transfer it on to our next starting trays.
So are we going to still continue with the spraying method, or are we going to go back to the watering method?
For this one, just because in our attempts to save this one, I'm gonna switch it up. I am gonna be directly pouring. I won't overwater them, but I will be directly pouring in just so that I know for a fact that the soil has all the water. And we're gonna see if we can bring these back, but if not, we're gonna start some new trays and make sure we do those properly.
Okay. Also, during week 4 of Blooming Where You're Planted, we are going to be trimming back our succulents.
Why?
Because when they do this is called a stretch. They're striving for sunlight. So when they do this, you just trim them back and you save the clippings and you start another plant.
That's cool.
Hey y'all, it's Miss Green and I am also here for week 4 of gardening, and I will be taking our tomato plants and giving them more space. I'll be transferring them into our starter pots, which they're a lot deeper, as you can see, and there's a lot more space for them, so I don't want them to overcrowd in their little pots that we have here. So we have a lot planned for this week. If you haven't already, please come join us Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 1:30 or 1 o'clock? 1 p.m. All right, thanks guys.
This is the process of cutting back. You just want to go in between the leaves and snip as close to the next, and there you have it. So this part you'll take and put in the tray, and you'll let it kind of score, because once it scores, it will be easier to take to the soil.
And what's scoring?
It's kind of like a drying out process, like scab. You know the process of.
Okay, so let it dry all the way out.
No, you don't let it dry all the way out. You just maybe for like 2-3 days, you let it sit out.
Okay.
And just let it air dry out a little bit, and then the next step would be after you let it air dry a little bit, you get it in the potting soil and it'll start to root. I like to let it. Some people just like to set it on top of the soil. But I like to let mine score better because it takes to the soil, it roots to the soil better when you let it score.
Okay, so once it scores and once it's done, then what?
You take it to the soil and you just sit it on top of the wet soil. You want to while it's in this stage, you want to make sure you're watering it once a week. Not a deep watering, but just to make sure that the soil is staying moist so that it can root.
Okay. See that one
And
more time.
We'll go in, and you want to get as close.
And why are you doing this?
This is because these succulents have scratched, and what we mean by stretch is they kind of thrive to get to the sunlight, so they'll stretch. But most succulents, if you notice, they're supposed to sit on top of the soil as such, just like this. So when they reach this point, this is what we call a stretch. Okay. And this is also a stretch, and this is also a stretch.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
This is another form of trimming a succulent back. You can also take one of the leaves and you twist it so you make sure you get it all the way at the base. Just take it off like that.
Okay. And then what do we do with that?
Then you let this dry as well. Or some people, they don't take very well. I prefer not to do this method. You can take this and sit it down in the soil like so.
Okay.
And put a couple drops of water after you plant it in the soil. But I usually like to take my leaves. Make sure you get it all the way at the base, like so. And I like to let this part also score so it takes to the soil better. This is my method I like better.
Okay.
And you just let it dry out for a couple days, like so. And once this part becomes, it's like a little core come on there, take it to the soil and you'll do the same process. Okay. Put it on top of the soil and put a couple drops of water, you know, every 2-3 days or whatever to make sure. And in a couple days, you can kind of like move it and you'll start to see the roots.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So once you snip, what do you do with the rest of the plant? Or are you going to trim it all the way down?
I'm going to trim this one back because it has no leaves at the bottom.
Okay.
So I'm just going to trim it to this right here.
Okay. And then that one will stay?
It'll stay.
Okay. We're
It'll
just going
keep growing.
to give it...
We're not hurting it. We're just trimming it back.
Okay. All right.